Hello, my name's Craig Seibert, and this short webinar is titled The Declaration of Independence, the Bedrock of Liberty, the Apple of Gold. In this webinar, we explore the Declaration of Independence, its fundamental importance, and how without it, the U.S. system of government fails. U.S. President Abraham Lincoln really gave us a profound thought when, in a short fragment of writing that I'll discuss later, he communicated this thought, and this is not a quote as much as it is a summary of a thought that he communicated, that the Constitution is a frame of silver adorning and preserving the Declaration of Independence, which is the apple of gold. And in a minute I'm going to explore this quote that Lincoln gave and where this summarized statement comes from. But first, let's explore Abraham Lincoln himself and the weight he holds on this topic. First, I'd like you to consider this, Abraham Lincoln's connection to the Founding Fathers. You know, when Abraham Lincoln was born in 1809, several of the Founding Fathers were still alive. In fact, he was 14 years old when Thomas Jefferson and John Adams died, the remaining Founding Fathers. So during his young youth years, he would have had awareness that the founders of the country actually still were living here in the United States. Second of all, Abraham Lincoln really lived through a period that could be called the Second American Revolution. The Civil War really was about bringing to full blossom the principles of the Founding Fathers. Thirdly, under the importance of the Declaration, the issue of slavery really pressed an answer to the principles of equality that were expressed in the Declaration, and this made Lincoln really study and reflect on it deeply, and his thoughts on its importance really shined forth. And so I'd like to submit to you that we could literally look at Abraham Lincoln as an additional framer of our system of government. His unique position in history and his generational attachment to the founding period, I think, allows us to say this. Well, where did this statement earlier that I shared, the apple of gold, really come from? And again, it's a restatement of a fragment that was found that I'm about to explore with you. A shorthand written fragment was found among Lincoln's presidential papers after his death, and it was believed to have been written in 1861, shortly after he had taken office. It was never published in a letter or writings, but it was deeply penetrating and profound. And it's only 3 paragraphs long, with a statement or two at the end. And here's the first paragraph. All of this is not the result of an accident. He's talking about the Constitution, the Union of the States, and the Declaration. It has a philosophical cause. Without the Constitution and the Union, we could not have attained the result, but even these are not primary cause of our great prosperity. There is something back of these entwining itself more closely about the human heart. That something is the principle of liberty to all. And so in this statement, what he is basically saying so far is the Constitution and Union have allowed us to be successful as a country so far, but behind those things is the Declaration of Independence. And this will become more true as we go on, but this is what he's referring to here. The principle that clears the path for all, that gives hope to all, and by consequence, enterprise and industry to all. He continues in the second paragraph. The expression of that principle and our Declaration of Independence was most happy and fortunate. Without this, as well as with it, we could have declared our independence of Great Britain. But without it, that is, the Declaration of Independence and the principles that are in it, we could not, I think, have secured our free government and consequent prosperity. No oppressed people will fight and endure as our fathers did without the promise of something better than a mere change of masters. So what he was saying here is we could change our structure of government from Great Britain to the Constitution of the United States, but if there wasn't a philosophical underpinning, it would just be simply a switch of masters. So here's the third paragraph. The assertion of that principle, that is the principles again found in the Declaration, at that time was the word fitly spoken, which has proved an apple of gold to us. The Union and the Constitution are the picture of silver subsequently framed around it. The picture was made not to conceal or destroy the apple, but to adorn and preserve it. The picture was made for the apple, not the apple for the picture. Now I'm going to come back to my summarizing statement in a minute that summarizes this quote of Lincoln here, but in essence he was saying the Constitution is the frame of silver that adorns and preserves the Declaration, which is the apple of gold. And then he closes with these two short sentences. So let us act that neither picture or apple shall ever be blurred or broken, that we may so act, we must study and understand the points of danger. Well, interestingly enough, where Lincoln got these thoughts was actually from the book of Proverbs in the Bible. And in Proverbs 25:11 it says this, "A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in pictures of silver." And so thus this summarizing statement, which again is not a quote of Lincoln, but summarizes his quote, "The Constitution is a frame of silver adorning and preserving the Declaration of Independence, which is the apple of gold." Well, if Abraham Lincoln really thought that the Declaration was the apple of gold, I want to spend several minutes plumbing his thoughts to this end. And we're going to explore the feelings that Lincoln had about the Declaration. He said this, "I've never had a feeling politically that did not spring from the sentiments embodied in the Declaration of Independence. Let us revere the Declaration of Independence." And here's the part Lincoln loved so much that he revered. "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed." What I'm going to do now is explore several excerpts from Lincoln's speeches and remarks that give life and breadth and new understanding of this bedrock document, the Declaration of Independence. The first speech we'll take a look from at an excerpt from is June 26, 1857. And this is what he said. "The founders meant to set up a standard maximum for a free society which should be familiar to all and be revered by all, constantly looked to, constantly labored for, and even though never perfectly attained, constantly approximated, and thereby constantly spreading and deepening its influence, and augmenting the happiness and value of life, to all people, of all colors, everywhere." Now this is all of this particular quote I'm going to share here, but just look at these repeated words. It should be revered, and then it should be constantly looked to, constantly, constantly, constantly. And then this last statement here, don't let this sprint by too fast. He is basically saying in the Declaration of Independence are universal, unchangeable truths that are true for all people of all colors everywhere. And he wasn't just speaking about the United States, he was talking about the whole world, that the principles embodied in the Declaration are universally anchored truths that are true for all time, all people, everywhere. Second quote, on August 17, 1858, he really appeals for Americans to come back to the principles of the Declaration. "Now, my countrymen, if you've been taught doctrines conflicting with the great landmarks of the Declaration of Independence, if you've listened to suggestions which would take away from its grandeur and mutilate the fair symmetry of its proportions, if you've been inclined to believe that all men are not created equal in those inalienable rights enumerated by our Chart of Liberty, let me entreat you to come back. Return to the fountain whose waters spring close by the blood of the Revolution. Think nothing of me. Take no thought for the political fate of any man whomsoever, but come back to the truths that are in the Declaration of Independence. You may do anything with me you choose, if you will but heed these sacred principles. You may not only defeat me for the Senate, but you may take me and put me to death." While pretending no indifference to earthly honors, I do claim to be actuated in this contest by something higher than an anxiety for office. I charge you to drop every paltry and insignificant thought for any man's success. It is nothing. I am nothing. Judge Douglas is nothing. But do not destroy that immortal emblem of humanity, the Declaration of American Independence. Do not destroy that immortal emblem of humanity, the Declaration of Independence. And so, in essence, he's saying there that these principles are so true and so universal and must be returned to, that even to sacrifice his life would be a worthy gift if only the American people would return back to this declaration. And it turns out that he was prophetic in those words. Looking toward the Gettysburg Address, again referring to the principles of the Declaration there. 7 years ago, he's appealing to 1776 with that remark, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation. Well, it was the Declaration of Independence that established as a nation, conceived in liberty, again he's talking about the Declaration, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. And so these first 4 parts of the Gettysburg Address is saying the Declaration of Independence are the principles that are universal I'm appealing to. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived, so dedicated, can long endure. And so we're testing right now in this civil war if the Declaration of Independence and its truths will live forward. That from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. And so embedded in the Gettysburg Address is the fact that the contest of the Civil War was to fight forward and make true the truths that were embedded in the Declaration of Independence. So now a final quote from Lincoln on why, a year before his death, on why these truths should be fought for. It's not merely for today, but for all time to come, that we should perpetuate for our children's children this great and free government which we have enjoyed all of our lives. I beg you to remember this, not merely for my sake, but for yours. I happened to temporarily to occupy this big white house. I am a living witness that any one of your children may look to come here as my father's child has. It is in order that each of you may have through this free government which we have enjoyed an open field and a fair chance for your industry, enterprise, and intelligence, that you may all have equal privileges in the race of life with all the desirable human aspirations. It is for this the struggle should be maintained, that we may not lose our birthright. The nation is worth fighting for, to secure such an inestimable jewel. And so Lincoln was saying freedom and liberty and the principles of the Declaration are worth fighting for. So let us act that neither the picture or apple shall ever be blurred or broken. That we may so act, we must study and understand both the points in these documents, but the points of danger. Assassinated April 14, 1865, the Constitution is a frame of silver adorning and preserving the Declaration of Independence, which is an apple of gold. And if you'd like a copy of this print, you can look for it at uscivicstraining.org. My name's Craig Seibert. Thanks for listening.